Arizona has always carried a different kind of silence, a desert hush that feels ancient, watchful, almost patient. But in the last 2 years, that silence has started to change. Lights moving where no aircraft fly, voices echoing across the sky when the night is windless, people vanishing in places that should be impossible to get lost in. And from the red canyons to the long black highways, something is shifting just beneath the surface. Something modern, recorded, witnessed, and still unexplained. Tonight, we're opening the newest files, the ones Arizona hasn't had time to bury yet. Lock your doors, put on your headphones, because after this video, you'll never see Arizona the same way again. The 2024 Arizona Desert Lights. It began on a warm July evening when Phoenix was glowing with its usual summer heat, the kind that blurs the edges of buildings and makes the sky feel too big, too empty. Just after 10 o'clock, a cluster of lights appeared over the city. At first, people thought they were planes lining up for Sky Harbor, but then the formation shifted. 3 lights, perfectly spaced, moved into a triangle. Then the triangle rotated, smoothly, silently, without drifting apart. No aircraft does that. Dozens of people recorded the scene. Families in backyards, drivers on the Salt River Freeway, a night shift nurse stepping outside for air. The lights drifted slowly across Phoenix before angling toward Scottsdale, holding formation like they were following an invisible path. There was no sound, no wind displacement, no flashing navigation markers. When the videos hit social media, the local FAA office was flooded with questions. Their response was unsettling in its clarity. No registered aircraft were flying in that airspace at that time. Military bases nearby denied training exercises. No drones were scheduled. Nothing official matched what people saw. 2 nights later, the lights returned, this time over Mesa. A man on his balcony filmed a second formation, 5 lights forming a rigid line before breaking apart and snapping into a V shape. He described feeling a pressure in the air, like the atmosphere had tightened around him. His dog refused to step outside. A woman driving home from Tempe reported that the lights paced her car, matching her speed for nearly 20 seconds before rising vertically and vanishing into the haze. Her dashcam flickered and produced a brief burst of static, as if something had interfered with the electronics. What makes the 2024 sightings so disturbing isn't just the number of witnesses, it's the consistency. People miles apart described the same impossible characteristics. No sound, no wobble, no exhaust. Shapes that held geometry like they were a single object, not individual lights. Investigators noticed another pattern. The lights often moved just above the city's thermal layer, where temperature inversion can distort sound. But even that doesn't explain the formation changes, or why some observers said the lights seemed to fold into one another before disappearing. Local astronomers ruled out satellites, meteors, flares, and Chinese lanterns. Drone experts pointed out that maintaining such tight formations requires high-grade military swarming tech, which, according to official statements, wasn't in use. But the strangest account came from a retired air traffic controller in East Phoenix. Watching from his backyard, he said one of the triangular formations dimmed, then split in half, not by separating lights, but as if the entire object bent inward, like paper being folded. He refused to go on camera. He only said one sentence: "Whatever that was, it wasn't ours." The lights vanished after the first week of August. No explanation ever followed. But people across Arizona still watch the sky differently now, expecting the patterns to return, waiting to see if the silent geometry will take shape again above the desert. And if the sky can move with intention, what happens when it decides to come closer? The disappearance of Natalie Jones. The woods around Flagstaff have a way of swallowing sound. Even the wind moves quietly through the pines, as if the forest is listening instead of speaking. On the evening of March 14th, 2025, 23-year-old Natalie Jones drove into those woods and was never seen again. She had spent the afternoon hiking near Schultz Creek, a popular trail system just outside the city. Photos on her phone show nothing unusual: tall pines, a slant of golden light through the branches, her backpack resting on a rock. But at 7:42 p.m., Natalie sent a text to her roommate, a message that would become the anchor of the entire investigation. "Something's off, I think someone's following me." The roommate responded instantly. No reply came back. 20 minutes later, Natalie's phone connected briefly to a tower farther north, an area with no official trail and no reason for her to be there. The signal cut abruptly, as if the phone had been powered off or shielded. Search teams later walked the same route. The terrain was rough, uneven, scattered with volcanic rock, but not impassable. What they didn't find was any sign she had walked through it. When authorities located her car the next morning, it was parked neatly at the trailhead. Doors locked, keys missing, no signs of struggle. Rangers noted that the driver's seat hadn't been adjusted, meaning no one else moved the vehicle after she arrived. Inside the car, investigators found her water bottle, sunscreen, and a journal with a half-written note about a strange quiet deeper in the woods. Then things became stranger. Search and rescue teams deployed drones, tracking dogs, and infrared scans. Not a single piece of fabric, footprint, or object connected to Natalie was recovered. Even the dogs behaved oddly. Handlers reported sudden hesitations, moments when the dogs froze and stared into the trees as if sensing something just out of human perception. 2 dogs refused to proceed past the same ridgeline, whining and pulling back on their leads. GPS data from Natalie's smartwatch was even more unsettling. The final reading showed her moving north along an unofficial slope, then stopping abruptly. No wandering, no zigzag, no frantic path. Just a clean, sudden end to the trail, as if she had stepped into a void. Hikers later came forward with reports from that evening. One couple described hearing running footsteps behind them around dusk. But when they turned, the trail was empty. Another man claimed he heard a woman's voice calling for help from deeper in the forest, but the sound seemed to echo strangely, too close, then too far, like it was being thrown around the trees. The most unsettling witness was a cyclist on Eldon Lookout Trail. He said he saw a figure standing still among the pines around 8 p.m., tall, rigid, almost statue-like. When he shined his bike light toward it, the figure stepped behind a tree and never reappeared. He couldn't confirm whether it was male or female, only that it didn't move like a hiker. Authorities labeled Natalie's case as active and ongoing. They ruled out foul play publicly, but did not explain why dozens of officers searched for nearly 2 weeks without finding even a thread of clothing. Within Flagstaff, whispers spread quickly that the forest had taken her, that something was stalking the trails that night, that the woods had shifted in ways no map or ranger could track. In April, a volunteer discovered a strange detail, a patch of flattened pine needles in a remote clearing, the shape of an oval roughly 6 feet long. No footprints surrounded it, no drag marks, just a single unnaturally smooth depression in the forest floor, as if something heavy had rested there briefly. Investigators dismissed it as unrelated. Locals still talk about it. Natalie's disappearance remains unsolved. Her family holds vigils at the trailhead, leaving flowers near the sign where her car was found. Hikers pass quietly by, glancing toward the trees with an unease they can't explain. Because in Flagstaff, people don't worry about the dark. They worry about what moves inside it. And if the forest can take someone without leaving a trace, what else is walking beneath those pines? The Tucson Sky Trumpets. The first sound came just after 2 in the morning, drifting across Tucson like a signal carried on cold air. It was low at first, a metallic groan that seemed to lift and bend, stretching into a long, wavering note. People who heard it described the same unsettling detail. It didn't sound like it came from above or below, but from everywhere at once, as if the sky itself had opened a throat. On March 27, 2024, dozens of residents from Midtown to the outskirts reported hearing what would soon be called the Tucson Sky Trumpets. Doorbell cameras captured the sound clearly. A deep mechanical howl that rose in pitch, dipped sharply, then held steady for nearly 15 seconds before collapsing into silence. No aircraft were recorded in the area, no storms, no wind patterns strong enough to produce anything close to what people heard. At first, locals thought it might be industrial equipment, but no factories were operating at that hour. Others blamed train brakes, until the rail company confirmed no trains were scheduled during the recorded times. When the sound returned the following night, louder and more layered, residents stepped outside in the dark to listen. Some filmed the sky, pointing their phones upward as the sound rolled overhead. And then came the strangest detail of all. Animals reacted before the sound began. Dogs started whining and barking minutes ahead of the first note. Horses in stables kicked at the walls. A cluster of owls near Relito River took flight at the same moment, scattering into the sky as if fleeing something invisible. When the noise finally hit, it vibrated lightly in the chest, not like thunder, but like standing near heavy machinery that wasn't there. The third night brought the largest wave of reports. One video from the east side of Tucson captured the sound with disturbing clarity, a rising metallic scream layered with what sounded like a second tone underneath it, almost like a voice. The audio pulse caused a brief glitch in the camera, the timestamp flickering as if the device struggled to hold the recording. The National Weather Service received dozens of calls. Their official response was careful. The sounds were likely the result of temperature inversion affecting distant industrial noise. But meteorologists in the area privately disagreed. One specialist noted that inversion can distort sound, but it doesn't create new harmonics. It doesn't generate pitch changes with mathematical precision, and it certainly doesn't make cameras glitch. A group of university students decided to set up microphones in the foothills to capture the phenomenon. What they recorded on April 1st may be the clearest evidence yet. As the sky darkened, the microphones picked up a faint hum, like the low vibration of a power station. Then, abruptly, a long metallic wail rose above the hum, bending into 3 distinct notes that echoed across the mountains. When they analyzed the audio, they realized the tones repeated in the exact same sequence every time. A low note, a rising second note, a sharp metallic fall, then silence. Patterns like that don't happen naturally. Some Tucson residents began to wonder if the sounds were coming from underground. Arizona has extensive tunnel systems, mining shafts and cavern networks that can resonate in strange ways. But seismologists found no activity, no tremors, no structural shifts. Whatever the source was, it wasn't earthbound. The final major incident occurred on April 12th. A woman in Oro Valley reported that the sound seemed to move across the sky, traveling from east to west with deliberate speed. Her husband filmed the moment their porch light flickered in time with the audio, as if the electricity was reacting to something passing overhead. After mid-April, the sounds stopped as suddenly as they began. No explanation was released. No agency claimed responsibility. Some insisted it was atmospheric resonance. Others believed it was military testing. A few suggested it was something far older, the desert speaking in a language no one had heard before. But the residents who heard it share one detail. The sound felt intentional, not random, not accidental, like a call waiting for an answer. And as Tucson returned to normal, people kept watching the sky, wondering if they would hear that metallic voice again, the one that made the night feel alive, listening and impossibly close. Because if the sky can speak, what happens when it decides to say something new? The Navajo County cattle mutilations. The ranchers were the first to notice something was wrong, not in a dramatic way. No storms, no predators circling fences, no signs of trespassers, just a strange silence settling over parts of Navajo County in early 2024, the kind of silence that makes the desert feel hollow. And then the first carcass was found. A rancher near Holbrook discovered a cow lying on its side in a clearing, perfectly intact, except for one impossible detail, a precise incision along the jawline, clean and bloodless, exposing bone with surgical accuracy. No tracks surrounded the body, no drag marks, no signs of struggle. The ground itself seemed untouched, as if the animal had been placed there gently after whatever happened. Veterinarians from the county inspected the carcass and confirmed what ranchers already knew. Predation leaves chaos. Coyotes tear, cougars rip, scavengers scatter. But this was different. Straight cuts, no pooling blood, organs removed with a kind of precision no wild animal could achieve. The vet called it anomalous, a word that only raised more questions. Within weeks, more cases appeared. A rancher from Snowflake found 2 cattle dead on opposite ends of his property, each with the same incision patterns, circular tissue removal, clean organ extraction, 0 blood. One animal had its tongue removed from deep within the throat, a classic detail in decades of cattle mutilation reports across the American West. But this wasn't folklore. This was happening now. Sheriff's deputies launched an investigation in mid-2024, interviewing ranchers, reviewing security footage, and combing through the sites. They confirmed the same eerie pattern at multiple locations. No prints, no tire tracks, no disturbed soil, just an animal lying where no natural cause made sense. One rancher installed motion cameras along his fence line. The camera captured the cow alive at 2:11 a.m. At 2:14 a.m., the feed glitched for a single second, a burst of static, and when the picture returned, the animal was dead on the ground. No movement, no collapse. It was simply there, lifeless, as if time itself had skipped forward. The glitch was later dismissed as a camera malfunction. Ranchers weren't convinced. In early 2025, a Navajo Nation ranger reported seeing strange lights over open rangeland. He described them as small white orbs moving low like they were scanning the ground. When pressed, he admitted they moved too smoothly to be drones and too silently to be aircraft. Another witness, a truck driver near Winslow, claimed he saw a beam of pale light sweeping across a field around 3 a.m. It lasted less than 5 seconds, but the next morning, ranchers found yet another mutilated cow directly beneath where that light had passed. Its organs were removed through a single circular opening. No blood, no tearing, no predator involvement. Biologists attempted to link the deaths to disease or scavenger patterns, but the cut precision and lack of hemorrhaging ruled that out. Bloodless wounds require a controlled environment or an extreme vacuum effect, neither of which occur naturally in the Arizona desert. The most unnerving part came when deputies tried to map the mutilation sites. The coordinates formed an irregular semicircle arcing across Navajo County, as if something had been sweeping the land in a deliberate path, stopping at intervals to take exactly what it needed. Locals began to avoid certain pastures at night. Dogs refused to cross specific fences. Horses spooked at empty fields. The quiet that first settled over the land in 2024 had become something else entirely, a kind of watchfulness. Today, the sheriff's office still lists the cases as open. Ranchers have become more vocal, insisting this isn't random, isn't wildlife, isn't explainable by anything the county has seen before. Some point to experimental aircraft. Others whisper about older legends, stories of things that move silently across the desert, taking what they want without ever being seen. But everybody agrees on one thing. Whatever is out there knows exactly where to look, exactly when to strike, and exactly how to leave without a trace. And the deeper the desert cuts, the more it seems to bleed without ever spilling a drop. The Antelope Canyon vanishing. By late autumn, Antelope Canyon becomes almost unnaturally quiet. The heat fades, the crowds thin, and the narrow sandstone passageways breathe a colder kind of silence, a silence that feels aware of every footstep. On November 18, 2024, that silence swallowed someone whole. Her name wasn't released publicly at first, only that she was a 34-year-old Canadian tourist traveling alone, drawn to page for the photographs she posted daily. The last image on her phone was the interior of Upper Antelope Canyon, thin beams of white light cutting through the red stone, dust hanging in the air like suspended breath. She captioned it, "Feels unreal in here." It was uploaded at 3:42 p.m. 2 hours later, her tour group returned to the pickup point. She didn't. At first, guides assumed she had lingered behind to take more photos. It happens often. The canyon seduces people into staying longer than they mean to. But when the guides walked the route backward, calling her name, the walls returned nothing. No echo, no movement, no footprints leading deeper into the slots. It was as if she had stepped out of the world mid-stride. Authorities launched a full search that night. Drones hovered over the canyon, scanning with infrared. Rangers rappelled into side chambers seldom used by tourists. Navajo Nation officers coordinated sweeps through nearby slot systems. Not a single piece of clothing, gear, or physical trace turned up. The most disturbing detail came from the security office. Antelope Canyon isn't monitored by a full grid of cameras, but the entry and exit points are. Footage shows her entering with the group at 2:57 p.m. It shows every other member of the tour leaving, but there is no video of her exiting, no glitch, no obstruction. She simply does not appear again on any camera. When investigators checked the timestamp, they found something stranger. The entry camera recorded her walking in, but the second camera, which should have caught her on approach, never registered motion during the window she would have passed through. The feed remained still, untouched, as if the canyon had folded time inward around her. In interviews, several tourists reported seeing a woman matching her description, pausing several times inside the canyon, looking over her shoulder, as though she felt someone behind her. One described her expression as tense, like she heard something we couldn't. Another said she seemed to be listening more than photographing, head tilted slightly, as if trying to understand a sound buried beneath the canyon hum. A guide later admitted privately that he heard faint knocking during the search. Rhythmic, distant 3 short taps followed by silence. He believed it might have been rescue crews echoing through the sandstone, until another ranger replied, "No one was in that section." By the third day, the search area expanded to include off-trail slot formations. Many of these corridors twist into tight vertical spirals, some narrowing to spaces barely wide enough to pass a shoulder. Rangers call them dead zones, places where sound behaves unpredictably, bouncing sideways, looping in on itself. A seasoned tracker said he felt one of those echoes vibrate directly through his chest, as if the canyon were speaking from inside the rock. Search dogs brought in from Utah refused to enter a particular junction between 2 slot systems. Their handlers described the same reaction each time. The dogs would approach, tense, lower their bodies, and back away whining. Nothing unusual was found on the thermal scanners, Nothing harmful in the air, just a cold pocket of stillness. By the end of November, the official search was suspended. The case remains open within Navajo Nation Police, though no new evidence has surfaced. Her family traveled to Page, placing a small memorial at the canyon entrance, a bouquet of desert flowers, and a note that read, "You deserve to come home." Local guides still avoid talking about the disappearance, but hikers in the area have shared new whispers. Strange drafts of cold air in dead-end chambers, soft knocks deep underground, and, on rare evenings, the faint echo of footsteps that don't line up with any human presence. Because Antelope Canyon is beautiful, yes, but it is a labyrinth carved by time, silence, and pressure, and some places keep what enters them. And if a canyon can swallow a person without a sound, what else is waiting in those narrow walls of stone? The 2025 Black Triangle over Navajo Nation. The high desert of the Navajo Nation has a kind of darkness most people never experience. Not the soft suburban kind, but a deep, ancient dark that turns the sky into an ocean. On the night of January 11th, 2025, that ocean shifted. Something enormous passed through it. Just after 9:30 p.m., a tribal police officer driving along Highway 191 radioed in an unusual report. 3 lights moving together in a perfect triangle, silent and low, drifting over the mesas. Dispatch asked if it might be a plane. His answer came back steady, measured. It's too low, too slow, and it's not making a sound. Within minutes, calls began flooding in from homes near Chinle, many farms, and Tsaile. Residents described the same thing, a triangular mass blotting out stars, gliding without vibration or engine noise. Some said the object looked as wide as 2 football fields. Others described it as a floating shadow with 3 pale lights at its corners, glowing like embers rather than headlights. A family outside Rough Rock captured 20 seconds of footage before their phone froze. The video shows 3 lights hovering in a rigid shape, the stars behind them disappearing as if swallowed by an invisible structure. Halfway through the clip, the battery indicator collapses from 82% to 8%. The phone shut down seconds later, a failure the owner said had never happened before. Tribal police officers in the region confirmed visual contact. One patrol unit reported the craft passing overhead with such presence that the air felt compressed, as if the night were being pushed downward. No wind followed, no dust, no turbulence. Just a slow-moving shape that carried its own gravity of silence. When officers attempted to track it, their dashboard cameras flickered. GPS signals stalled. A system that normally updates every second froze entirely. Dispatch logs later showed that one officer's transmission cut out mid-sentence for nearly 9 seconds, yet his microphone recording captured only static, no interruption in his voice, as if the silence had overwritten his words. Around 10:05 p.m., residents in the remote community of Lukachukai reported hearing a low hum, not mechanical but resonant, like a vibrating pressure that settled into the chest. But others standing only a mile away claimed they heard absolutely nothing, even as the lights passed directly overhead. No aircraft known to the tribe, to the state, or to nearby military installations were scheduled in that area, and nothing that size flies without sound. The object continued northeast toward the Black Mesa region, skimming the edge of the horizon before abruptly stopping, halting in the air without slowing down, as if coming to rest against something unseen. Witnesses said it hovered for nearly 20 seconds, completely motionless, before tilting slightly and shooting upward at an impossible angle. No acceleration curve, just a sudden departure, vanishing into the sky. When the tribal police contacted federal aviation authorities, they were told no radar signatures were recorded over the nation that night. But technicians at a small weather station near Window Rock reported an odd reading. A brief distortion in the upper atmosphere, like a pocket of air had shifted shape suddenly, forming a sharp geometric anomaly before dissipating. Locals spoke quietly about what they saw. Some believed it was military. Others insisted it was not. Elders referenced older stories, accounts of sky beings that traveled in dark shapes, silent and deliberate, avoiding the noise of the world below. But the most unsettling detail came from a rancher near Canyon de Chelly. He said that, as the triangle passed over his land, every one of his horses lifted their heads at the same time. Ears pointed straight up, bodies rigid. They did not panic, they did not run. They simply held themselves still, staring into the dark, as if waiting for something they already recognized. The craft never returned. No official statement was released. The videos remain brief, shaky, incomplete, just fragments of a larger shape the desert swallowed again. But the people who saw it agree on one thing: whatever moved above the mesas that night was not flying. It was watching, and when the sky itself changes shape, the night begins to breathe.